y'all didn't know me. I've been doing an independent study with Ms. Lawson this year about women's statuses all over the world. But if you guys do know me, would you mind? You're fine. You know that I've been reading this book all year. I'm sure that some of you guys have seen me. It's kind of a funny title. And that's what I'm here to talk about today. I'm going to talk about how gender issues directly correlates with the overall welfare of a country. How secure, physically secure women are in that country directly correlates with the overall success and stability. Okay. So I really became passionate about this when I went to India last Christmas break. This is some pictures of me in India. That's my dad. For y'all who don't know, there's this huge feminist movement last December as a result of a gang rape that happened in New Delhi. Do you mind? Now, New Delhi is the capital. It's in the middle there, and I was living in Mumbai at the time, which is a little bit south of there. And I still couldn't escape all these vigils and protests for this girl. Now, this girl was victim to a gang rape after going home from a movie one night. It was very brutal, and she later died from her injuries. And it was like the whole country, finally stood up and said, "This is enough. We are through with treating women this way." And you can read the signs. And as you can see on that bottom picture, every news outlet was covering this. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, BBC, everything that you can think of was following this amazing feminist movement. And it was because these people were finally asking for equality. And rape is the ultimate crime of inequality. Boys will be boys. And news networks went so far as defending the boys, saying things like, regardless of what big football players they were still persecuted. They had promising futures, and that this will haunt them for the rest of their lives. Now, CNN said this. And so it angered a lot of people that news networks like this were sympathizing with these rapists, rather than sympathizing with this girl. And that's what rape culture is. It's the idea of having everyone think that, what was this girl thinking being drunk that night, rather than say, how were these boys able to do what they did to her? Taking advantage of her without her consent, without her ability to give consent. That's what rape culture is. Okay, so this is just a map that shows comparatively how America stands on women's security compared to the rest of the world. As you see, we're not the reddest country, but we're also not the pinkest country, just to show a little bit comparatively. Okay, so after figuring out what our country thought about rape culture and how we decided, I wanted to see what our students thought. And so I sent out a survey about attitudes towards women in general. And I figured out that, most students here, they would not blame the victim if she was out late at night. You can't say it's her fault. If she's wearing provocative clothing, it's a little bit more iffy, but the survey still said that it's still not her fault. However, some students did decide to blame the victim if she's passed out drunk. And it didn't surprise me because this lines up with what the rest of our country thinks. But what it showed me is that we as individuals are able to decide what our culture says. We are able to say and make the difference that, victims should never be blamed for what is done to them. Whether they're a male or a woman, they are never to be blamed for not giving consent to what is done to them. They're never to be blamed in a sexual assault. And that change starts here. And that change starts with feminism. Okay, so this is the actual definition of it. It's a person who believes in the political, social, and economic equality of the sexes. Now, I know many of you may think there's a lot more to being a feminist than just that, but this is the actual definition. This is all it is. Some misconceptions are that feminists are, yeah, it's funny, that feminists are anti-family and that they're angry, and that you can't wear lip gloss if you call yourself a feminist. You can't wear high heels if you call yourself a feminist. But these are all untrue. These are all false qualifications for making yourself a feminist. One of the biggest ones is that feminists are these crazy man-haters. You may come across someone who calls himself a feminist and then blames all their problems on men, but this is so untrue. I found that, yes, men can be disrespectful towards women, but women can be as disrespectful towards other women in the same way. A woman can tell another person that she's not allowed to do something just because of her sex in the same way a man can. So I think it's incredibly unfair to blame all the problems on men. Okay, so a huge misconception about feminism is that men cannot be feminists. And this particularly irks me because it takes half the world's population out of an issue that's incredibly about them too. Now, this is Joseph Gordon-Levitt. This is Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec. He's famous for being a feminist on the show. And this man was from a movement on social media, I'm not sure if y'all saw, called We Need Feminism. That's what he posted. By taking half the world's population out of this movement, it's extremely detrimental to it. Especially with an issue like this, where most violence against women, a large majority of it is done by men. And when people say gender issues, they think women's issues. Just when people say racism, they think African Americans. And when people say sexual orientation, they think homosexual. In all of these cases, the majority is taken out of the equation. And in this case, when the majority is actually hurting the minority, it's extremely detrimental. Also, for men who think that they don't have any benefit to feminism because they're not a woman, I would ask them to think about their moms and their wives and their sisters and your cousins and daughters and girlfriends and aunts and nieces, and think about how much you love them and why wouldn't you want equal rights for them as well, and why wouldn't you want to fight for that? Who knows her? Yay, I hope the clap makes sense. This is Beyonce, and I think that she's trying to do what I'm trying to do today by rebranding what feminism is. If you guys have listened to her new album at all, or even a little bit, it's all about remarketing the idea of feminism, like rebranding the image. She's using the media, which is normally a tool used against women, for women. And I think it's really powerful. So if you guys needed another excuse to call yourself feminist, just think it'll make me more like her. Because it will. Now, I hope I convinced you guys a little bit not to be afraid of the word. In those surveys I mentioned previously, I asked if people believed in the social, political, and economic equality of the sexes, and everyone said yes. Which is why I'm not here today to tell you guys what to believe in, because all of you guys are feminists. You're just afraid to use the word for some reason. And I'm afraid of a future that creates a bystander effect to rape culture. And I think by being able to call ourselves feminists in a country like this, the best country in the world, we're really leaders on a global scale. And I think it's very harming if people of this country are afraid to say that we fight for women's rights. And I think that we can change that. Okay, thank you for letting me talk today.